Okay, so you've got your question. The question hasn't been answered. The answer is valuable to the counselling world. I'm going to just throw a spanner in the works right now. I want to think about risk. And I'm going to come back to risk on multiple occasions because what I'm helping you do is design an ethical research project. But I want to cover risk right now at the very start. I want you to think about the topic of your question. I want you to think about what area you're looking at here. The reason I'm asking you to think about that is that some areas are just naturally very, very controversial. If you're looking at things like child sexual abuse, if you're looking at things like terrorism, researching these topics has a natural risk to it, simply by virtue of what the topic is. There have been cases historically of people accessing material online that has been entirely inappropriate, material about how to engage in terrorist acts, material involving children that is illegal, and they have claimed they were just doing research. We cannot risk any student engaged in a project where there may be those kinds of problems. Also, some research is just controversial in its nature. Research looking at context dependent sexuality, research looking at intelligence and whether that relates to gender, whether it relates to ethnicity. These are controversial, highly sensitive topics. Now, I am not saying that counsellors can't do research in those areas. Of course they can. That is what we are here for. We need to explore these difficult topics in order to be able to bring light and answers to the world. But we are talking about a student project here, a time-limited, resource-limited project. A highly controversial, high risk project usually needs to be done over a long time period, maybe several years, because you are going to have to do all kinds of pre-tests to make sure that everything is safe. You're probably going to need an advisory committee with experts in the field to give their advice to keep everything safe. You're going to need systems in place to escalate cases. That includes any kind of study where you might be doing an intervention that could cause potential harm to a client, any kind of study where you may be testing a client and identifying significant risk to that person, or testing a participant and identifying significant risks. Maybe some kind of core on test where you could identify that that person is having suicidal thoughts. These kinds of high risk studies really need us to consider whether the student project is the right place for them. We're not saying they can't be done in counselling. Of course, counselling is the place to do this kind of research. It's important that we do. We're saying that actually, in a time limited, resource limited research project for a student, where you might not have the funds to be able to pay experts to come in and support and escalate situations if needed, and have the time to be able to pre plan and put all the mitigation in place. For those kinds of projects, maybe this isn't the right place to be doing it. So I want you to go back to your research question and ask yourself, is this a highly sensitive or controversial topic? If it is, it might be worth just having a little chat with your tutor right now so that you're not taking any chances of doing a load of work on something and then finding out that it's a no-go for your ethics. Have a little chat with your tutor, make sure that you're confident and comfortable that the topic itself is not so high risk. As I said, we're going to come back to risk throughout because there are lots of other risk factors we need to take into consideration. And it might be that the topic is a little bit risky, but actually it's okay because you can do lots of mitigation. Or it might be that the topic isn't risky at first glance, but when we really get into it, we start to see where the risks are. So we're going to come back to risk repeatedly, but I just wanted to flag it right here, right at the very start. As soon as you've got your research question, is this a high risk topic? Go away and have a little think. And if you think it might be a high risk topic, check with your tutor before you go any further, just to make sure that you're not going to waste your time on something that isn't going to be approved by ethics.